Happy New Year to all of you. And it's really a pleasure to have you. And it's really an honor to have Kevin as my co-organizer and host. Kevin, thank you so much for everything you are doing in the data community. As you all know, the topic for today is mastering Azure Synapse Serverless SQL Pool, because with Serverless SQL Pool, you can do a lot. Not only you can read data from your data lake, you can also simplify your data pipeline, because what within this presentation, I will cover part of that. Hopefully, we have time at the end, because I will show you how can you even read data in near real time. And if you're okay with data inconsistency, guess what? You can force it to read dirty data, uncommitted data. So hopefully we have time. So who am I? And Kevin already did a great job. I'm not gonna spend too much of the time. I've been in IT for over 20 years. I started my career as a network administrator. While supporting data team, I moved to database administrators and development. Okay, for the lab, prior to Microsoft, I was working as a data engineer, right? However, now I work for Microsoft as a technical trainer. I do have a couple certifications. As you can see, this is just a few of them. And I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer. I am a former Microsoft MVP. And Kevin already went me over the data community contributions, and we have time constraint. I love travel. Only in 2022, I was able to visit 6 countries, and this year I'm planning to double it, because I work from home. As long as there's internet, I must be able to deliver my jobs. Great. And then, am I an Azure guru? No, I'm not. But what I can guarantee you, guess what? I do have enough knowledge to make you understand this topic, as this topic is related to Azure. On my free time, I also love to take my kids out to eat. I love family times. These are my 4 kids. Great. So now let's go over what we have for today. Okay, I'm gonna introduce Synapse Serverless SQL Pool. Okay, and then I'm gonna go over the pros and cons, because it has some limitation, and I want you to be aware of that. And I will walk you through, for example, how can you read files like JSON, CSV, and Parquet. I will go over the security best practices, then go over the questions. Great. What is Synapse Analytics? I would love to make this part interactive, but because of time constraint, I'm gonna go straight to the presentation content. Synapse Analytics is a limitless analytic data platform. Why would I say limitless? Because Synapse Analytics is not just a tool. Instead, it is a tool of services. It is a set of services. It is a toolkit that fall under 2 categories, what we have: pool and integrated. When it comes to pools, Synapse Analytics support different kind of pools. So far, we have about 6. For SQL, we have 2 kind of pools. We have Dedicated SQL Pool that used to be Azure SQL ZW, and this is going to be your physical data warehouse. It is a reserved instance, right? What I like about this is that you can stop, compute, and pay for storage if your environment allows downtime. And then it is based or built on top of what we call MPP, which stands for Massively Parallel Processing. It is also designed to optimize for any kind of workload. If your workload is grid, guess what happens? As long as you know your access pattern, you can design your workload for it. Right? We have hash functions that can do that. If your workload is wide, where you don't care about where the data is stored, guess what? It is designed also for ETL process, what we call loading. And WoW Movement can do that. Right. The serverless SQL pool is our main topic. I'm going to skip it for now, if you allow me, because we're going to deep dive into that. The next pool is Spark. And you know, Spark is a memory distributed framework that allows you to do all kind of data movement and development, like data engineering, machine learning, science, and even AI development. Because it is in memory, the response times is very great for machine learning algorithm. And you know, Spark make Synapse makes Synapse one of a very great analytic engine that allow you to do big data analytics. And Spark does the same thing for Databricks. I know sometimes there's a confusion between Synapse and Databricks. Spark does the jobs, okay? Not Synapse, not Databricks. Spark does it, and both of them support it. So we also have Data Explorer. Data Explorer allow you, for example, to do log analytics or telemetry data. You can perform some analysis against large log analytic data set or telemetry data set, and the response times is very great. It is one of the underused services, and less people blog or talk about it. I guarantee you, when it comes to cost saving for any kind of task that related to log analytics or telemetry, you want to do that, that tool can help you. And it just, you know, it's powerful. Just give it a try. Feel free also to share your feedback. When it comes to integrated is Synapse Analytics integrated with Data Factory. And anytime when you heard people mention Synapse Pipeline, it's all about Data Factory. And this service is kind of the same. Not all features are available within Synapse Pipeline, but 90% of those features are available. And sometimes people say, should I go with Data Factory or should I go with Synapse? Data Factory fall under data movement services. Synapse fall under a set of category services. That's the difference. Because within Data Factory, you don't have data warehouse. You don't have that. You cannot do basic data discovery and exploration within Data Factory. You understand? You don't have that. So it's all about data movement, and Synapse Pipeline does that for you. We have Power BI that integrated as well. And then we also have Purview when it comes to data governance, right? Not only data governance, even for development team, because guess what? It's hard sometimes when we modify things on productions, we don't even know what will impact. Purview can give you that before you even really push your deployment into production. You can quickly see what would impact and plan accordingly. Not only about governance, even for the release process. Purview is one of the tools that I would highly suggest you also to see how can you leverage Microsoft Purview. And on top of that, you have your data lake. And you cannot create any Synapse analytic workspace without a data lake. Without a data lake. So you do have that data lake. This is a requirement. So as I mentioned, Synapse is not a tool, it is a tool kit. It is a set of services. Great. So our main topic is what we call Synapse Serverless Serverless SQL Pool. So what is it? Serverless SQL Pool is what is a distributed query processing engine that leverage T-SQL with the help of OpenWSET. And OpenWSET will allow you to read files from your storage. And that distributed query processing engine rely on your data lake. What kind of file can you read? You can read CSV, JSON, and Parquet. Guess what? Anytime when an application or user submit a request, the control node receive that request. If the control node decide there will be three, based on the query processing, the control node may guess, I need three compute. So as you can see, there's one compute here, there's another compute here, there's another compute here. So how does it do? So when that request, the control node break it down into smaller queries. Each set of the query take a portion of your data to read it in parallel. But the good thing is, how does the auto scale? Any compute node can vote for that. If you take a look here, this compute node realize my data set may require more compute node and request two more compute node. As you can see here, that's how the auto scale is done. But this is different from dedicated SQL Pool. Why? Because the dedicated SQL Pool is a compute and storage reserve. You reserve that, whereas serverless SQL Pool has no local storage. It can only store metadata, and you bill for the amount of data that are processes. When I say T-SQL, let me open that query and show you about OpenWSET. For some reason, let me see if it's opening. So it's not opening. So what I'm going to do is to proceed. When it's opening, then I will, yeah, it seems like it's opening. Great, let's wait for a couple more seconds. Let's finger cross it is done now because I'm on my hotspot. So let's proceed. After that, we can go over that later. So what benefit would we get? Okay, what are the benefits? Let me open this again while I'm speaking so they can open. So if you take a look, if you want to do basic data discovery and exploration, you can think of serverless SQL Pool, and I'm about to show this to you. You can leverage serverless SQL Pool to do data transformation. But remember, you have to write it out to a data lake, okay? Because it does not have any internal storage, all right? So, however, even though if you can write it, that doesn't mean you can update that files. Update is not supported. So you can create it you can leverage serverless SQL Pool to create a logical data warehouse. Right. If we go back to the data transformation one more time, I'm going to show you during the demo. I will show you the type of operation we use to leverage data factory, or for example, Synapse pipeline to do it, whereas we could have done the same thing with the help of serverless SQL Pool. And the transformation can be way simpler, and it's going to be much easier for you to use it than using the data flow within Synapse pipeline. But guess what happens? Some transformation might require you to use the data flow, but some of them, anything that you can leverage the serverless SQL Pool, let it do that. So let me see, for example, if I have my thing for some reason. Okay, perfect. If you take a look on the OpenWSET, this is what it's using, okay? This is, you have to provide this, you have to provide this, you have to provide this. However, you can mention or you can define your data set, specify the number of columns that you want to return, even though if you specify it, the entire data set will read first, and then we will filter out this for you. You can, the format can be a CSV, Parquet, or Delta, okay? And then you do have, you can leverage these to read information in real time. Consider if you have your event hub pushing data, okay, or you have your stream analytic pushing data to a blob storage adapter, and you want to read that data in real time, you can leverage read options that allow inconsistent reads. You can do that. And if I have a chance or time, I will demo this as well. So what would be the limitation? You need to understand there is a limitation. So you can create 20 database per server, right? Because even here, it mentioned you cannot create more than 20, right? But that doesn't include any Spark database, because with Spark database, with what we call lakehouse, there's no limitation, right? There's no limitation on maximum and minimum of databases per object, unless if you can reach to that level, more than that, right? And I think this is the limitation of SQL Server Engine. So for max identifier, you have 128, and this is also another limitation, right, of SQL Server Engine. Maximum query execution is 30, but you don't have to worry because the engine is smart enough to auto-scale and any compute node. So the auto-scale doesn't really rely based on the compute node, because within each on the control node, which is each compute node, okay, based on my understanding, okay, that doesn't come from the documentation, based on my understanding. It seems like, for example, there is a compute node manager that communicates straight with the control node manager and knows exactly how to do the auto scale. So they collaborate together and they make the auto scale happen. Like you can see, for example, here, if you take a look, this compute node relies on its data set. It's huge enough. The best way to provide that data ASAP is to request more compute node. You can see clearly enough it requests more compute node, and there were 2 more compute node allocated. So now, if you take a look here, and these are the limitations because I have to go to the demo. So why can and can't we do? What concept that is supported? We can create database, we can create external resources, we can create data source, we can create file format and table, we can create views, we can create inline table value functions, we can create store procedure and schema. What is not supported in is tables, because you do not have any internal storage. You rely on external storage, so therefore trigger won't work. Materialize view won't work. And data manipulation language statement won't work. However, we can write out to the data lake, even though DML does not support. Keep that in mind. We can, even though it does not support, we can optimize not only for data type, for output as well. We can output our data to different locations and to perform analysis against it. Data definition language statements are not supported except for views and security. So let's go to the demo. If I go to the demo, this is my Synapse workspace. If I click here, that's going to be room. For me to access my workspace, I have to click on Data Hub. If I click on Data Hub, there will be workspace. And then if you take a look, I have my serverless SQL database here. And then if I go on link is where my storage account is. I can, for example, drive. This is the demo that I will show you that we can read data in real time. Or I can click on root, which is the primary. I can see my backup files. I can see my data lake folder. I can go and read data if I want to. If I can see that data is partitioned, I can choose to say preview. I can choose to say select top one, right? And then if I choose to say select top one, guess what happened? It's gonna go and query my top one database. As you can see, this is my top 100. If remember, we pay by the amount of the data that are processes. If I want to manage that, okay, I can click on serverless. Okay, if I click on serverless, guess what happened? I can see the configuration there. Okay, I can see the workspace and everything. However, if I click here, guess what? I can see the amount of data that I process it for today, for this week, for this month. I can choose to limit it daily. I can say, okay, I do not, I want 20 terabyte daily. I can choose to disable it if the requirement to limit it to 100 terabyte weekly. I can limit it to 100 terabyte. Consider if the requirement is to limit it to, for example, 1,000 terabyte monthly. I can choose to do that. 500 or whatever, I can choose to do that. But if I have to go to perform basic data discovery and exploration, if I have to do, for example, write that data back, I do have a couple demos. So remember, we say we can read data. First of all, we have to configure. Let me connect. Okay, I'm using Azure Data Studio, and remember, to connect to Azure Data Studio, you have to configure, your data lake storage account. Otherwise, even though if you connect to Synapse, you won't be able to query. That's what I'm doing. I'm configuring this, and if that database exists, I want to drop it. Okay, so I'm gonna create a master. This is not done yet. Let me wait. Give me 1 second. It might be done anytime, and I have to. Okay, perfect. It is done. So I'm gonna create a master key encryptions. Okay, and then here what I'm doing, I'm creating a database scope credential and using workspace identity. That's what I call it, and I'm using manage identity for that. Okay, and then here I'm creating an external data source, and I'm calling that external data source my sample, and I execute this. Perfect. Now I want to make sure that I have access so I can read that data. Let's see. Yeah, I can read that data. Consider if I want to read CSV files. Let me change my connection. If I want to read CSV files, things that you need to understand, there's no automatic header detection. And all fields are being read using max data type, which is not good when it comes to performance and costs. Let me explain to you. If I want to read that data, select top 3, and you can see it is a CSV files. If I say select, and you can see there is no fields, and this is the field name. However, if I uncomment this and I tell it the data have header, what I mean by header O is equal to true is that the first row is the header. It's gonna go and read that with the header. And sometimes if we want to do analysis, we don't care about the header, but we know the data have header. We can choose to say, okay, the first row is the second line, and then we can say it this way, and then you can see that it's removed the header. Great, perfect. So I'm gonna read that same files, and I'm gonna show you the impact if you use the default data type assignment. Let me show you something. This is the data type. If you take a look, it is VACA 8000. It is big N. In reality, the maximum of these fields, it's probably 20. Why do I need VACA 8000, right? That said, I can choose to define my data type. How can I define it? This is the same file that I'm reading. While reading this file, I use with, and I said, I want you to change the data type to date, and I want you to change the ship date to date, and change the update to VACA 20, change the total due to decimal 18.2. If I execute this, I got that same result set. But guess what? If I read that metadata, which is the same thing that I just created, you can see the data change. You can see it is VACA 20 and numeric 18.2. Whereas here, remember, this is total due and sales order number. Okay, let's go back here. And then we go to sales order number was, for example, 8,000. So now, because you're being charged by the amount of data that are processed, that's what happened. Not only your process will run faster because you optimize your data type, but you will be able to save more money, right? So this is one of the things you need to take into consideration. Other ways we could have changed the data type is that way, but it's required a bit of more code. As you can see, I have to cast this as the, and I have to mention the alias. I have to cast this as VACA, and I have to mention the alias. Whereas in the workflows, in the with clause, if you take a look, I just mentioned the field name, and I want to override the data type, and I specify. If you want to do it this way, that's fine, you can do it, but take this in consideration. It will require more codes. So if we have to read team JSON file, things change a bit. Okay, what I mean by things change a bit. When you're reading JSON file, the format has to be CSV. As you can see here, you see the format is CSV. Take this in mind. It doesn't matter if the extension is that JSON, you should still mention CSV. And the failed terminator, failed code, and whole terminator value have to be set to this value. And you can clearly see it here. All of three have to be set to this value. And then if you want to read a scalar value, you have to use JSON underscore value. Sometimes when you're reading JSON file, you might be dealing with arrays. If in that case, if you have objects that have arrays, so JSON query is the one that will allow you to read that data, to extract that arrays. And guess what? Even though if you extract that arrays, you might need to flag that data, make it more human readable. So with that said, you can leverage OpenJSON to explode that object. So it's gonna turn that data into WOP for every element in that array. So let's go this in action. I'm gonna go with the JSON value, which is a single value, as you can see. You can see the format is JSON, a CSV, sorry about that. And then you can see the extension is JSON. So I follow all the information that provided here. And then guess what happened? Let me use my database. Sometimes we forget to be in the current database context. If you take a look here, team, you can clearly see I was able to read that value. Yeah. So the value is 8,000, and I was able to read it. If I expand this, you can see this is a scalar value. I can see there is an array. Top product purchase is an array. Look at that array thing. You can clearly see it. If I want to read that array, guess what happened? I can leverage what we call JSON underscore query. If I say JSON underscore query, I say this is the level that I want to reach. That's the index. And I need the top. And it is named top product purchases. And I said the same name. And this is the same query we were using. if I execute this here, guess what? I was able to retrieve that array. If you remember how this one was displayed before, let's go back here. You see how it was displayed. You can clearly see the array. With the help of JSON query, I was able to extract that array. But now the question is, even though when we extract that array, that data, it's still not human readable. How can we explode that data, flatten it? So to do that, it is come with the help of OpenJSON. No, sorry, OpenJSON. OpenJSON allow you to iterate over elements of the array, or if you will, the property of your object, right? So what does it do? It converts your object, your JSON object, into row. That's exactly what it's doing here. Second, you need to leverage cross API for you to flatten that data. Remember here, so here's what I'm doing. You can see how complex is this one, right? So now, if I want to extract the data coming from the array, what I'm doing here, this is the same query. We are all familiar. That's the first query. We are all familiar with this query so far. So now, this is the JSON. I am open, use cross API and leverage open JSON. And this is the content that is here, okay? And I said I need all the data. So now we found, and I mentioned this is what I need. I did my visitor, and it is bigget. So the visitor, this is, I said, okay, this is my data. However, I need visitor. That's a scalar thing for each row. And then for top purchase, I know it is on array. I said, you know what? I need this, but I want that to be Vata max because I don't want to chunk it. I don't know how much data that would be inside. And I want to take risks and use Vata max, right? So if you take a look here, this is our array, and I alias it as JSON. So now we have visitor. Before, the first result set was we alias it result set. The second, we alias it visitor. So now, because we have this array, I'm going to cross apply again, and I'm going to cross apply on visitor that, which is this one, the product purchase. And then I alias it to product content ID. Okay, this is it. And then I say that I get the same name in this one. If you take a look here, this is the same name, product ID. This is the item purchase. Those are the elements that I just aliased the same name. So now, if I execute this, guess what happened? Let me show you this. If I execute this, I was able to get my data set. Let's analyze it. I got the first one is 291. You can see I have 291 here. The second one, 49. I have 49. And the third one is 4024. I have 4024. So if I keep expanding, okay, you will see that data is the same. So the last one I was able to, it was 35. Let's go back and here you see 35. So that's how you flatten JSON data. And all of this is with the help of Serverless SQL Pool. It not only you can read the data from your data lake, you can even query Cosmos DB if you have Azure Cosmos DB in your environment. Okay, perfect. So now, however, if you want to read what we call Packy files, okay, for Packy files, it's easy. The only thing you will need to understand when it comes to serverless, it doesn't matter if Packy file predefined its data type. Serverless will always go with the max number for numeric and, for example, for string. So I will prove this to you. Let me change to the current data context. If you take a look here, you can clearly see, for example, here, we have, I'm reading the data. I don't even mention the field name. For example, well, header underscore row is equal to true. You can see with Parquet, it automatically detect the, for example, field name. Does it detect the correct data type? Let's take a look. And remember, you always have to optimize for data type in Synapse Serverless SQL Pool. If we take a look, it is optimized for N, for integer. So this is no more big N. This is integer. But for VACA, it's still 8,000. For numeric, it is 3618. But I know the data, the underlying data, it is 18.2, whereas here is 3818. We don't need that. So it's always best, to use the with and mention your data type. So if you take a look, I can do the same thing and mention it as it is. We have time constraint and we have a couple of data. We can we can do advanced analysis while the data sit on our data lake. For example, if you take a look, this is kind of consider if your organization have a tons of files that sit on your data lake, and your organizations do not require to have a physical data warehouse, and data consistency doesn't matter for you. But even though if it does matter, you can leverage what we call Delta Lake, because Serverless SQL Pool can query Delta as well. But consider you have your entire files on your data lake and you want to perform analysis. What here we were able to make good money when it comes to sales. So we want to know that here for us to perform analysis and see if we can replicate that here, or if we can do better. So I'm doing advanced analysis against that file, and the file sit on my data lake. I can execute this thing. I can clearly see 2013 was the year, right? I can, so now marketing team can use that data to perform, and this is advanced analytics. It's what happened. If you take a look, I can calculate the difference between previous and current date. So because full select is supported, full select is supported, we can clearly see this. We didn't have anything previous close price. It's not. We have nothing to compare, but we have here to compare. Guess what we have? We can see the difference between daily close price. So other things you need to understand. If you doing ETL, you want to replace some of your data flow with and you let Synapse Serverless SQL Pool to maintain this for you. There's things that you need to understand. You need to understand file path and file name function. These two functions are very useful. Why am I saying this? If you want to know the file name, or if you want to return the file name within, for example, your output, or you want to know for each file, how many rows do you have? This is where, for example, file name comes. So I'm going to query this location. As you can see, I'm query a folder, and I need to know how many files are there. If you come back here, check this out. I was able to know for each file, how many rows are there for each file. How cool is this? With the help of file name, I can add a file name in the result set. If I select this, check this out. This is my file name. And sometimes I may need to know the full file path. If I want to know the full file path, this is where file path comes in. It's a great function. If I want to do the same thing, I need to count how many rows each files and return the full path name. Okay, guess what? That's what I'm doing here. It's saying, this is my full path name. How cool is this? I can see, right? And guess what happened? You can leverage your data lake partition to accelerate your query workload. What I'm saying, team, I want you to understand. Consider if you have your data lake Your access pattern is order date. Let me repeat it again for you to follow what I'm about to say. Your access pattern is order date. If remember, these are the files that I have. If I want to query data where order date year is equal to 2011, if I follow it this way, it's gonna go and read the entire files. See, if you take a look here, I just want the entire file. So if you take a look here, guess what happened? We got our result set here, but we have 5 megabytes that's read, right? And then the total for total size of data move is 1 megabyte. But the scan, if you see the scan is 5 megabyte. It's a bit, for that small data set, it looks nothing, but for huge data set, this can be performance impact. What you could have done, if you know your access pattern, you could have partitioned your data lake based on that. So guess what happened? What I mean by this is the same query. What I'm using, let me use this for you to understand. If I query this one, guess what happened? These are the files that we have. We know we have these files, correct? So now I can partition, okay? So I can partition my data, okay? So let me show you. If you're looking at here, we still have the same thing, okay? Just to show you that I'm not cheating here. This is the same query that's here, and this is the same query that's here. So within the first one, why I have 5 megabytes for data scan? Because I have to read the entire file for me to return 2011. So what I can do here, I can leverage file path, okay? So if you take a look here, let me show you. If I partition my data based on my data based on order here, this is my order here. I said within the path, I need index 1. Because I request for index 1, guess what? I'm able to get everything. So now I can query the same thing and leverage file path because my data lake partition based on my access pattern. So the company will most likely query that data based on the order here. So now, because my data lake partition based on order here, I can choose to have order here and check to see how many scan is done. There is only one scan done, and that one megabyte scan done. So you come from 15 all the way to 1. You can see it's like you saving 80% of the time. You can see, for example, you can see how much improvement you make. If you know your access pattern, you can partition your data lake the same way, and that's gonna make your serverless SQL Pool run faster. And remember, data type matter as well. We can create object teams. We can create views, for example. I know there's time constraint. I'm a little bit rushing. So Kevin, don't worry, I will be patient to go over some of the question. Okay, so if you take a look, I'm joining 2 different data sets. Consider if I have to join 2 different data set team, okay? So this is 2 different data sets, and there are 2 different files, okay? I can perform join against those files. If business need that, I can create a view and have business executed. So now I can query that data based on the view team. And Power BI team can leverage that data, do cool stuff. I won't have time to query the large query and go over what we call Delta Lake. How can you leverage this for Delta Lake? But the thing is, you get the point. You can create metadata, you can create external data files, okay? So as you can see, I can quickly do this in case, let me see. These are some reference team, and I'm gonna share the link with you. And I forgot to add Kevin. I know Kevin Good within the community. These are coming from Microsoft, but I know a couple people from the community that are doing a tons of great jobs. So when I share that notebook with all of you, feel free to go over those documentations. And then, yeah, if you have, before I go to the questions, let me make sure I'm done with that presentation. If you take a look at what would be the difference between external table versus view, external table must be defined. Things you need to understand. You have to define your colon and your data type. So that means schema definition method. Things that you need to understand. External table does not support native partition pruning. However, there's way you can do because serverless is smart enough to do that, but natively it does not support it. Whereas view, you can specify the column name if you want. You specify the data type if you want, but I would highly suggest you to specify the data type because the best way to optimize your workload in serverless SQL Pool is optimize for data type and then also your data lake partitions. That's matter. If you know your access pattern, partition your data lake based on that. It does support native partition for me, right? So that's mean consider this even, for example, if you have a loading process, a data pipeline that loading data, you can leverage file path. Each time when you load the data, you mark it as done. So if it's failed, you can restart from there. You can leverage this and create a checkpoint within your data pipeline. So for you to reprocess the way it's left off if you want to. There's so many things you can do with file and file path and leverage them when it comes to optimization as well. And then when it comes to security, for serverless SQL Pool, we support SQL and Active Directory authentication. However, for data lake, there's share access signature, manage identity. That's the one that I just used to connect, to be able to query the data, and I create it live with you. There's user identity as well. And then there's anonymous access that you create. I don't think this is something that you will ever done, but sometimes, if you need that exists. Things you need to understand when it comes to best practices. For CSV, optimization, it's always great to use the parser version 2.0 to query your CSV files, and then manually create statistics for CSV. And like I mentioned, use appropriate data type. There is a link here that provides all of this. And then the file name, these are the things that I just mentioned, and I will share the slide with you. Okay, so thank you so much. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Tim, we only have 1 hour. There's so much that I can give and demo, but I will share the demo with you. Are there any questions, Kevin?
There is no questions, at least showing up in the chat window. If you,
Jerome, you said you have. Can you come up off mute?
So Abner's asking, how can we use this?
How to use it? To use it, you will need to create an Azure Synapse Analytic Workspace. If I come here, you have to say, for example, you say Synapse. Unfortunately, let me go back to TPM because I am on hotspot. It might be a little bit slower there. Yeah, if I come here, I can say Azure Synapse. Let me go back. Synapse Analytic. Sorry about that. This is Synapse. Yeah, so you have to create a Synapse Analytic workspace. Once you create that workspace, guess what happened? You have to, once you create that workspace, consider that you create that workspace. Give me 1 second, let me show you. This is my workspace that created under my resource group. I can click on it. when I click on it, I can open Synapse here. When I open Synapse Studio, it will redirect me to this. When it redirects me to this is the page that I'm gonna that will show up first. I will click on Data Hub. When I see Data Hub, you see Workspace. This is where I create my database. If you remember, I created a couple views. If I click here, I should be able to see the views that I just created. If I want to navigate to my data lake, I can click on link and click here. When I click here, I can navigate and I can leverage Serverless SQL Pool to select, to create the external table, to bulk load. These are the things that I can do with it so far. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Lots of other questions here from Kevin.
Yeah. Go
Obviously
ahead.
not
Okay.
Could you elaborate on write but not update?
Write mean, consider that, for example, let me explain this to you. Let me go back here. If you take a look on my, let me go back here. Where did I have advanced analytics? You see this one? You see this result? I can write this result set to, you see this result set? I can write it out to a data lake, but I cannot update that files. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah, that does. I was just wondering, is it just like write it to a temporary space, or is it like what happens when the second time you run that query?
Consider if you have, for example, if you're using it for a logical data warehouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me bring my presentation, and then hopefully this will work. Perfect. Consider that you're using it for your data warehouse. Okay, this is your Power BI. Okay, and then this is your serverless SQL Pool. Okay, and then this is going to be your data lake. Okay, so consider I'm using my mouse, that's why it's looking a little bit awkward. Yeah, allow me to do it. Consider your
That's
data
all good,
lake here. Yeah, perfect. If you're okay with the response times, if this is Power BI, right? If business is okay with the response time they are getting from serverless SQL Pool, you can leverage this as a logical data warehouse. So that logical data warehouse will be point to your data lake. Within your data lake, you can have a work area. Okay. Anytime when the data dump into your work area, you can query that data. The app you perform all kind of business analysis that you need to perform against it. You can save that result set to a different location, but this folder have to be job every time when you're saving it. So once you save that folder, that data into a different location in your data lake, there will be another step push it to the destination of the Power BI. So when it push it, so business can get that data refresh automatically as soon as that data is available in your data lake. So the output can be done that way.
Okay, and that can't be updated. That's the thing, is it?
No, you cannot update the file.
Okay,
You can
that makes
write
sense.
it out. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Nope. I do want to bring up one of the things that actually Ginger brought up in the chat window. Another thing, if you want to learn more about synapses, you may want to go to Data Toboggan. It is in the UK, but it is more than everything you need to know about synapses, and they'll talk about it all day on January 28th of this year.
Yeah. Share the registration link, and I can share it with the entire members. So this way, yeah, it costs overall, if you think of Eventbrite and Meetup, we probably have over 6,000 members. So if you share the information, we can share it because more people can reach out, can join and learn, see how best they can leverage the product.
I like it. And I do not see any further questions. So John, I do thank you so much for putting this presentation on. That was very informative. I know I learned a few things about synapses, what you can and cannot do. So always good to learn.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for